All right, good morning, everybody. This is the Traffic Advisory Committee meeting for the town of Wakefield for June 14th, 2024. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 8:31. Just a reminder, if you could keep your mics muted, closed captioning is enabled, so if you are invited to speak, if you could speak clearly and everybody else remain muted to assist with that. A reminder that the meeting is being audio and video recorded and will be posted to WCAT and the town's website. Item number 2, attendance. I have Joe Conway, myself, Joe Anderson, John Connors, Dan Benjamin, Lois Benjamin, and Matt Keeley. Bill Renault and Steve Mayo are out today. Item number 3, Pledge of Allegiance. Dan, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And could I note, today is Flag Day. And because of the severe thunderstorms coming in this afternoon, the ceremony that's usually at the Veterans Memorial Common, the Upper Common, have been moved to the Heritage Room of the Maricel.
Thank you very much for that, Dan. Appreciate that. Before we hit item number 4, we had meeting minutes for the May 10th meeting for approval, but there was an amendment to the agenda, so it got lost in there. So I'm going to sneak that in now before public. Do we have a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the May 10th, 2024 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Joe Conway. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, the meeting minutes from the May 10th, 2024 meeting have been approved. Thank you. Item number 4 is public engagement. So if anybody from the public has any comments or questions for traffic advisory that isn't related to an agenda item, we will give time for the agenda items that we have here. But if you have something that isn't on the agenda, if you could raise your hand and I will invite you to speak. And we have a few. Good. First, we'll start with Julie. Good morning, Julie. If you could just state your name and address.
Good morning. Good morning, Julie Scott for Central Street, Wakefield. Thank you for having this meeting at such a nice hour of the day that I can participate. On Monday night, this past Monday night, the town council had a preliminary discussion about the potential placement of flex poles on North Avenue. The town council intends to vote on this issue at their next meeting, and I hope that the Traffic Advisory Committee has asked for themselves to be put on the agenda to discuss some points that I'm going to bring up. Firstly, the DPW and the town engineer never included the placement of flex poles on North Avenue in their December 2022 presentation, despite months of being lobbied to do just that. I continue to respect their knowledge and expertise in their fields. No town councilor is an engineer, and I hope that our elected leaders prompt our town engineer and our DPW director again to reflect publicly why they chose to use their expertise together when not including the flex pole aspect of the design of North Avenue. I want our elected officials to publicly ask them why they evaluated their decision together and came to a united front in not promoting the placement of those flex poles. I want to make sure that the Traffic Advisory Committee also has time to talk about with the town council the Act to Reduce the Fatalities Law, which was enacted in December of 2022. The town council initially discussed the flex poles in December of 2022, but unfortunately, they never considered and they have never publicly asked you about the law. The Act to Reduce Fatalities was signed into law in December of 2022, and as part of the law, the following was added. Quote, in passing a vulnerable user, the operator of a motor vehicle shall pass at a safe distance of not less than 4 feet and at a reasonable and proper speed. The Massachusetts Department of Transportation shall erect and maintain signage along public ways necessary to notify operators of motor vehicles of the requirements for passing a vulnerable user from a safe distance as required by this section. Has the DPW or the Wakefield Police ever discussed the need to erect and maintain this signage along public ways necessary to notify the operators of vehicles? There are also to be 440 multifamily residential units and a restaurant space of 3,600 square feet, waterfront restaurant space built on Quanapawet Parkway. These apartments will have hundreds of cars added to North Avenue, as well as cars driven to that restaurant for their patrons. In addition, there will be children living in that building, and school buses will be needed to bring them back and forth to school. In addition to that, I can't see any design where it says there is or is not parking to be allowed on the south direction of North Avenue. So that would be coming into Wakefield from Reading on the right-hand side if you're coming in from Reading. Is there going to be parking allowed on that side of North Avenue, or will both sides of North Avenue not have parking? I had to park on North Avenue very recently for a funeral, and a very kind homeowner came out and asked me and begged me actually to park in their driveway because she's fearful of the continued narrowing width of North Avenue. And as I was standing there, an MBTA bus drove by, and it made me think about the MBTA buses and the school buses using North Avenue. Unlike most streets in Wakefield, almost every street off of the North Avenue Lakeside area is a dead end. So the buses have to pull over as the riders enter and exit. A narrow road concerns me because cars will be circumnavigating the buses to pass. I'm concerned about how the flex poles will affect the trucks and deliveries. I've already reached out to you about that. Concerned about the width of fire trucks with their mirrors and cars clipping each other. But this past week, I saw a childhood friend, a police officer, doing a detail directing traffic on North Avenue near the Knights of Columbus. And I saw cars passing him, behind him, almost out of his sight, his line of vision. They were driving behind him due to the narrowness already of the road. I know if a fire truck drives down North Avenue and there are flex poles, they will be next to the flex poles, but will actually move out 3 to 4 feet additional space to navigate around the flex poles. That means the fire truck will probably be crossing the yellow line coming into oncoming traffic. Stated at Monday's meeting was that flex poles are a safety barrier that prevent cars from going into the bike lane. That is not true. They do not prevent cars. They notify cars that there's a bike lane, but so doesn't a painted white line. The poles do not stop a vehicle traveling at 25 to 35 miles an hour, in fact. I also would like you to think about the fleet of vehicles and the safety of the employees of the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department. They enter and exit their building 24 hours a day. I certainly hope flex poles would not be considered near Hall Park, because that's where the entrance and the exit for the employees and for the workers of the municipal gas and light are. They should not have to circumnavigate flex poles and have a narrower street near their building. A town councilor did request that photographs of passing larger vehicles be taken and presented at the next town council meeting. They requested perhaps that vehicles would be staged, 2 large vehicles passing each other. I'm concerned about wiggle room and no room for any margin of error. We're all humans. There needs to be some extra space for cars to navigate. I know that things are imperfect. So if you could look into that stuff, I'd so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate that. Next, we have John L. If you could unmute and give us your name and address. Good morning.
Yeah, hi, it's John Ledgford here, 11 Overlake Road. I've been in a meeting a bit earlier this year. We were discussing signage on Prospect Street. I was just wondering if we could just get an update on where we are on that, because I think there were discussions about multiple things, and I think a sign was put up on Velma, but you know, I to be honest, I wasn't entirely sure if it was there before or not, but I just wanted to check where we were.
Sure. So there was a sign installed for the intersecting street on the curve that was approved by us and sent to town council, but I don't have Bill Renault here as far as you know what else is planned for that area. So I will touch base with him and get back to you and see what else might be planned for there, or if there's anything regarding the placement of that signage. I know you were concerned about where it was.
Yeah, it was a little bit earlier on, but I think it's definitely progress. So I wanted to thank the committee for that, because hopefully it will encourage people to be at least aware there's a corner coming up. I don't think it addresses the question about the hidden Overlake Road being a hidden road when you come around. You know, and people are trying to cross the road, people are trying to drive out, and that sign does not indicate that there is a road after the corner, which I
Okay.
think that which was our primary concern. But I think again, it's having a sign up there just indicating there's a corner is beneficial for sure. But maybe I don't know if there is some way of adding something to it that says, you know, there's a hidden road behind, which is where the accident will happen if there is one, I think. So
To,
anything.
to be truthful with you, we were having, it was challenging to find a compliant sign that would conform to the regulations, but also, you know, identify what we were concerned about. So it was kind of left open-ended that we would install a sign there that would alert drivers to that those intersecting streets and the curve, and town council approved that with kind of the idea that we would find something compliant. So I'll touch base with the engineer and see if there's anything else that can either be added to enhance it, or maybe the signage itself needs to be adjusted to something better suited. It's possible the sign just isn't the exact one that we were looking for. So we'll definitely we'll look at that. No problem.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we have Kathleen. Morning, Kathleen.
Good morning. I wanted to actually start and first ask if you could give us any information about the accident that happened at the corner of Hemlock and Farm Street on Monday morning.
Sure. The accident at Farm and Hemlock, I know, was something that made the news. It was a difficult accident for our first responders that responded there. I think I'd want to start off by praising their quick response, both the Wakefield Fire Department and the police officers there. They took some actions very early on that I hope will not only contribute to the cyclist's life being saved, but hopefully won't lead to serious long-term injuries, because it was a very serious accident. But I do credit them with their quick response, and Boston Med Flight as well, who does a fantastic job. The crash still is under investigation, Kathleen, so I can't give you a ton of details, but what I can say is that it was at about 6:30-ish in the morning. I don't have the exact time. I'd have to look it up, but it was before school started. It didn't involve students, fortunately. It didn't involve the construction site. It didn't involve really anything there other than, in my opinion, solar glare and possibly inattention. It was unfortunately a very, very bad accident that was just that, an accident. At this point, no charges are being filed, but it is still under investigation. So we are looking into that. We do have a meeting scheduled with the construction group for the high school for next week, just to kind of highlight some of their work there, even though this accident didn't really necessarily have anything to do with their work. They do have different phases of their construction, so we want to make sure that if there's anything that they can be doing to kind of mitigate any potential hazards like this, that they're doing it. And I will say from personal experience, I met with them last week for something else to go over their emergency plans, and they're excellent to work with. They were excellent when we worked with them in traffic advisory in the planning stages. And I have no doubt that if we have any recommendations for them, that they'll be cooperative with us. So if you have any recommendations, anything you see as resident, if you could email me or call me, because I'm going to meet with them next week. And if you don't have them in time for next week, that's fine. I can certainly call them at any time, and we can jump on a call and see if there's anything that they can be doing. But the accident, it unfortunately could have happened anywhere. I know it's a hectic area. The intersection is less desirable there, which is why we've worked very hard at traffic advisory over the last several years, but over the last couple of years with these two new school projects, to push for the complete redesign of Farm Street to include two new roundabouts that we feel will not only realign the intersections, but also will calm traffic. Roundabouts have been shown as effective in doing that, so we've pushed very hard for that. I appreciate everybody's effort on traffic advisory for sticking to that. I think we were met with some resistance from the vocational school development team initially. They wanted to put a signal there, and we pushed back on that. And I think that when that finally comes to fruition, I think Farm Street is going to be a totally different roadway in our town, and it's long overdue, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of the concern. I mean, I've brought up concerns about this area for quite a while now. And it does seem like the answer is it'll happen with the new school, which is about 4 years away from my understanding. And I would just hope that something could change to make things safer until that major road design happens. I mean, um, I walked that area at the high school arrival time just about every single day. I went by Monday shortly after MedFlight left, but I did hear firsthand account from my daughter who walked by the scene. But it's chaos there every morning. Farm Street southbound gets turned into 2 lanes. Pedestrian visibility for the crosswalk there is terrible. When I've brought it up before about potentially a pedestrian activated rapid flashing beacon, I've basically been told, oh, it'll happen with the redesign, but that's
Yeah,
4 years away.
Yeah, one is unordered. Joe Conway, who's with us, has one in the queue for that newly installed. They created a new crosswalk on Farm Street just south of Hemlock. So that is happening. That's not going to happen in 2 years with the redesign. But I completely understand your concerns. I'd love to hear any recommendations you have. So maybe we can talk offline. And if we could do it ahead of our meeting next week, which will probably be midweek. Maybe we can talk on Monday. And
Okay, that would be great.
I'd love to bring any recommendations to not only bond the construction company's attention, but just us as a town, and maybe have something we can employ in the meanwhile. Unfortunately, a complete re-engineering of the road is what's going to make it safer. But if there's things that we can do to mitigate some of the confusion there in the meanwhile, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I do know that it was sort of funny I think it was the first week of March of 2020, all of a sudden there was police detail at the school in the morning. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And then the next week, everything shut down with COVID. And there's never been anybody back there. And I don't know if something like that would help. But that we can talk about Monday. But the other piece of what I had submitted to talk about was Nahant Street, which I've also been talking about for a long time, which is sort of part of this whole thing. But something that I have noticed as both a pedestrian and a driver is that I believe it's westbound, but if you go from Farm Street to Main Street on Nahant, there is not one single speed limit sign, not one.
And I can fill you in on why that is. Those are regulations that we need to be in compliance with, and I can explain that offline too. It's a long-winded regulatory lesson that I've come to not enjoy, but it's our compliance with the way the law is written. So I'll explain more about that when we talk offline. It's not that we don't want them there, or we're not putting them there for a reason. It's just the way the regulations are. So I can tell you more about that. But there are other things that we can do to make sure that the speed limit's highlighted there.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows, and I've said it over and over again, the speeds on Nahant Street are sometimes approaching 40 miles an hour. That I apologize, I don't remember what it's called, but the sign that tells you how fast you're going as you approach Farm Street, I witness it every day, and especially when there's not school, because school creates traffic. But on a day there's not school, I've seen that thing hit 37, 38 miles an hour, and it's a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Yeah, and it's at the end of the road coming up to the intersection, so you would think people would be slowing down at that point.
Exactly, and they're not, and other portions of the road they're going just as fast, and it's fairly terrifying. I know that you're going to be talking about Nahant Street developments later in this meeting, but I look at current speeds and accidents. There was an accident there last week. I think somebody took out a telephone pole on Nahant Street about 6 months ago. Adding hundreds of cars for these developments is not going to make Nahant Street any safer. So I know it's in the works, but I just wanted to bring up the Nahant Street issues again. So,
Thank you, Kathleen. And if you could stick around for those other agenda items for Nahant Street, we would appreciate
sure.
it.
Actually, if I can just add one more thing, sorry, just to piggyback on Julie Scott about signage. The Mass DOT does have signs available. I guess they are free to municipalities. And there is a form that has to be completed by June 28th, a memorandum of agreement, in order to get those signs about sharing the road and the safe passing distances. So I'm not sure if that's something that Bill would be involved in charge of or who, but
May have already applied for that. I wish he was here today, but maybe Joe Conway can chime in on that in a few. And but that's something we'll look into, no doubt.
okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Next, we have Stonham's iPad. I'm sorry, I know you've been on before. If you could tell us your name and address.
Hi, Karen McMaster, 25 Nahant.
Morning, Karen.
Good morning, thanks for having me. So my concern is parking on the sidewalk, especially landscape trucks. I don't think it's allowed to park on any sidewalk, but this is something that I'm seeing more and more, and I get it. They have their equipment, they have to do a job, but I'm just wondering how much more it can be allowed, or maybe if somebody hires them, that they provide them a space. If I have somebody do work on my street, on Nahant Street, I have them park in my driveway for their safety and for the safety of others. It's getting a little bit much. They have a job to do, you're hiring somebody, it's great, but they're leaving for lunch and leaving like their trailers there. And it's not just on Nahant Street, it's everywhere. So I'm just wondering if that's something we need to start looking at down the road, because yeah, and then you just add other things like the Amazon trucks pulling on the sidewalk and stuff. It's creating a little bit of havoc, and just something I want to bring to your attention for down the road.
Not a problem. And if you see something like that, if you could call us, obviously it happens throughout town, but if you see something.
Yeah, you know what? I know you guys are busy and I could be calling you all day long. And I don't want to do that because it is that much. It really is.
If it could cause an accident, we definitely want to come and get them moved. So we have no
All right.
problem.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Anybody else for public engagement that does not have something related to an agenda item? Give you some time during those discussions. Okay, thank you, everybody. Next is item number 5, sign request for a no outlet or a no throughway sign for Walton Street. This was a request from a resident who I believe is on with us, Dale. Dale, if you could unmute and join us. Dale, you still with us? I see Dale on here, but pretty simple request. Just wanted to give them a chance to present, but in essence, they've seen an uptick in traffic on Walton Street. They suspect it's those that are coming from the 128 area trying to find a way around during heavy traffic to get to Montrose Ave or Walnut Street in Saugus. And they find their way down Walton Street, which is a series of dead-end streets with no outlet to any other main roads. So they're concerned about the increase in traffic and some visibility issues on that road that don't lend itself to the increase in volume. So I think it's pretty straightforward. We've had similar requests to this. When they make sense, we approve them. Joe Conway, any thoughts on this? I think it's
This is pretty standard. I think whatever we put up, we probably have in stock. So it'd be a pretty quick one if it gets approved.
Perfect. Okay. Any discussion on this?
I was just looking at where it would be placed. Looks like there's a utility pole a little bit into the street. Doesn't really look like there's a place on the corner for it, but you guys would know better than me.
You want to dig safe a post show, or you want to do it on the utility pole, or just leave it up to?
You know what I'll do? I'll turn it over to our highway staff if they can get it on the utility pole. I can't tell from the picture I'm looking at. It looks like there's a children's sign there too. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
move the both of them out towards the intersection more, so a little bit more visible. But why
Yeah, I
don't we
think that'd be
say
good.
we'll throw it on its own separate pole.
Perfect. Okay, do I have a motion to install a no throughway sign or similar for Walton Street?
So moved.
I have a second on that.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will move that forward to town council for their approval, and if approved, we'll send it back to you, Joe, and we appreciate it. Thank you
Yep.
very much. Next is item number 6, a parking restriction request. This came from our own Dan Benjamin, and I couldn't agree more, Dan. I think this is it's an excellent excellent area to have a 15-minute parking space in the square, the downtown area, especially with the future of the Inspire Cafe having an actual brick and mortar location, which we're all excited about. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what they do and maybe some of the benefits that a 15-minute space could provide in this area. I think you're still muted, Dan. If you could unmute for us. Thanks.
There's already one 15-minute space directly in front of the store that's going to be Inspire Cafe. But I was wondering if we could put 2 there or one on Richardson Avenue behind the handicap sign that's there now. And this way, I know they're going to be having kids or something with wheelchairs or wheelchair vans pulling in there. This will give them access to the building. And I just want to see some success for Inspire Cafe. And I think all of us probably want that same thing. I mean, this is basically a spinoff from the old cafe that used to be in Melrose, Vinny and Bo's. And I just think it's employing people that need to be employed. And I think this will help them out. You know, you can just pull in, get a cup of coffee and move out. There used to be one up in front of the old Honeydew and Dunkin' Donuts on Main Street. I think there was one over by Rada's, but some of those stores aren't there anymore. So this would fill in that space, and I want success for Inspire Cafe.
I completely agree. I think I wouldn't be parking in the 15-minute space because if you've ever been to Inspire Cafe or a similar location, you're going to be there for a little bit, and you're definitely going to enjoy your time there. That's for sure. They do a great job, and the environment's great there. So I would personally be staying more than 15 minutes, but I agree that we should have a 15-minute space on Richardson near Main Street behind that handicap space. Not only for customers, but there may be employees there or even friends and visitors that need a little bit of extra time that don't necessarily have a handicap placard and need to get a little bit closer to the front door. And I think that would be that'd be a huge help. And you know, it would help with some accessibility issues, even if somebody does have a handicap placard, but that first handicap space is taken, they might be able to pull into the next available spot, which is close to the door there. So I'm all for it. I think that it makes sense to have a 15-minute space on Richardson near Main Street behind the handicap space there.
Is it possible for them to have a different signage that says 15 minutes so you can pick it out rather than the green colored signs? Because it blends right in. It'd be tough for the parking enforcement officer to figure out who's 15 minutes, who's 2 hours.
Yeah, maybe we could have Joe. Maybe we could see if they could do like red characters on it to stand out a little more. We'll see if there's a way that can be compliant and a little creative too. That makes sense.
We have one down by Town News, I think, too, and I don't know how that's worded out. But
Okay, I think if we get that approved, that's something that is something easy that the highway department could do.
thank you.
Any discussion on it from members of traffic advisory? Any members of the public have any questions or comments? If so, if you can raise your hand. All right, do I have a motion to have a 15-minute space installed behind the handicap space on Richardson Ave near Main Street?
So moved.
All right, moved by Joe Conway, second by Lois Benjamin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it. We will forward that to town council for their consideration. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Dan, for bringing this up. I think it's a great idea. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, town to invest that amount of money into the Inspire Cafe, and it'll work out great.
I agree. I agree. All right, item number 7, a quick update on a traffic calming application we received for Merriam Street. Again, Bill Renault is not here today, so he might have been able to provide a little bit more detail. But in summary, we received a traffic calming application from a resident on Merriam Street. They did an excellent job obtaining the signatures needed for us to investigate the conditions there further and see if traffic calming measures may be warranted, and then move forward with some possible design concepts. But they did they received all those signatures, and quite a few. Seems like almost everybody in that area, and Robert Street too. So kudos to them. So that is going out for data collection soon. I believe Bill Renault had a contract signed with a company that does the data collection for the town. So that's a company separate from us that does this day in and day out. They hope to get that data collection within the next couple of weeks now the contract's signed. So Joe, any updates on that, or is that pretty much in summary what we have?
That's pretty much where we're at this point. Once that comes in, then we can move on to whatever the next step may be. Perfect.
Any questions or comments on that? That was a brief update, just to let everybody know that where we stand with that application and how we're moving forward. But we're definitely moving forward. They worked pretty hard to get those signatures, so we appreciate that. All right, if no one has anything else, we'll move on to item number 8 is proposed residential development for 119 to 135 Nahant Street. The Board of Appeals did receive a request for continuance from attorney Jason Panos. So we will not be discussing this particular agenda item today. We may need to hold a special meeting in July, which we typically don't do, but I'd like to review this as much as we can for the Board of Appeals so that they can have as much information as they need to make a decision and move forward with this. So that is item number 8. Item number 9 we do have on the agenda, and I have Paul with us and Scott Thornton to continue their presentation on the 32-unit multifamily development there, which Paul, I believe, has been reduced in size, so we can talk a little bit about that, and I'll turn it over to you and make you a co-host if you have anything to present, or would it be better to have Scott be the co-host?
It'd definitely be better to have Scott be the co-host, Lieutenant Anderson. Thank you for the introduction. There has been a further reduction in the number of units in the project down to 24 units. That was presented to the board at its last meeting. And there have been additional materials submitted, and Scott can go over those. So Scott, if you can begin, please.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Lieutenant, and members of the TAC. Scott Thornton with Vanessa and Associates. I actually just have a few slides, and then I'll turn it over to John Tilton from Williams and Sprague's for updates on the site plans. All right. So, and again, just a couple slides on traffic, but as Attorney Haverty mentioned, project's been downsized from 26 units to 24 units. I'll get into a discussion of the resulting change in traffic generation on the next slide. As I mentioned, John Tilton has comments, and we're hopeful that we can get some comments from the TAC to be provided to the ZBA in advance of their next meeting, because I think for the most part a lot of the traffic issues were discussed and I think generally resolved at the last meeting, and then the major changes had to do with some comments on the site plan, and I think the applicant has taken those comments, made some adjustments to the plan, also made adjustments to the architectural plans, and I think Andrew from Phoenix Architects is also here in case the board would like to, or the TAC would like to hear from them. But just one quick slide on the trip generation, the traffic study was initially, or the development was initially contemplated with 32 units. Then there was a reduction to 26 units. And the latest go around or revisions to the site have resulted in the project being downsized to 24 units. So that's a 25% reduction from what was initially analyzed in the traffic study in terms of the trips. So during the morning and evening peak hours, you're really looking at a minimal increase. And these are just the new trips. It doesn't account for the trips from the existing 3 residential units that are on the site. So we think that we're sensitive to the concerns of the neighborhood and the town, but we think that the project is really going to have a minimal effect on traffic flow in the area. With that, I think I'm going to turn it over to John Tilton, and then he can present his revised site plans.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Hang on a sec. I'm moving my way around here.
John, do you need to be a co-host this year, or are you just going off of Scott's presentation?
I'll go off Scott's presentation. I don't, hang on a sec. I did want to share my screen, but it's not letting me.
Yeah, Lieutenant, do you have to take me off of being a?
I just made John co-host as well, so you should be able to.
No, I can't share my screen. Hmm.
Scott, can you maybe stop sharing and then see if that helps?
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do.
Oh, that's Scott. You got the site plan you can put up.
Yeah, maybe that's easier.
Okay. You put on the layout sheet, the layout plan, which would be, I guess, sheet 10.
That's for this. I don't think it's sheet 10.
Sorry, it's a 10. My mistake.
Maybe this one?
Go on Wise Landscape. Keep going. Sorry, try right there. That's good.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So again, I'm John Tilton, Williams Sparagus Engineering. Chris Sparagus could not make this meeting, so he asked me to attend. So this is the site plan. I did notice a mistake. We did change the plan, the parking plan. We still, for some reason, it says 26 units in the middle of the building there. It's 24, as Scott has spoke about. That needs to be changed. But so the changes we made to the plan from the previous one is revised a parking plan. We now have same amount of parking spaces, but 4 additional visitor parking spaces in the rear that's shaded. Right there, Scott, thank you. And to the left, we have near the dumpster, there's a live, keep going right there. Yeah, right there. So you see where this hatch is, live delivery area for vehicles for, thanks Scott, it says parking delivery space. It's for mailman, it's for deliveries for Amazon, and they can park there to make the deliveries. And you can access the building from the rear where the mailroom is. So if they park there, they can go from there to the back. They don't have to go to the front of the building. It's right where, in between where the handicap spaces are. So that gives them access to the building. It's so there won't be any parking. Encourage the deliveries not to park on the street and on the sidewalk, go back of the building. So Scott, if you go towards the front of the building, there's a sign, we say delivery vehicle parked in back sign, meaning that there's a sign right there that indicates direction of where these vehicles should park for deliveries to the back of the street. I'm sorry, back of the parking lot. We've also added in the front, no parking or standing signs, 2 of them, one right there and one further to the right. So again, no parking allowed on the street in that section for deliveries, for visitors in that area. Encourage people to park on site in the visitor spaces in their spots or deliveries in the rear of the building. So those are the basic changes to the site plan. It's the same layout, same entrance, 24 with 1 access exit to the site. So that's about it. So I'll be happy to answer any questions or comments people might have.
I don't want to steal Dan's thunder, but I'm sure he's going to ask. Neither of those handicap spaces are van accessible. Then is that correct? Because if you're going to put a delivery space in between those, that would negate either of those being van accessible.
So that is ADA compliant. Actually, that's not a parking space in between. So that's the aisle. So those are 8 by 8 by 8.
So maybe I misunderstood. Where's the delivery vehicle?
Sorry, yeah, right there.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
there'll be a sign there too. The sign indicating in the front parking back there, and there'll be a parking delivery space. We see delivery vehicle only parking. Yeah, delivery vehicle parking only right there. So we'll place the sign there. So it's encouraging, deliveries, Amazon, even utility trucks, Comcast to park there when they come onto the site.
Yeah, and just to jump in, John, this gore area, the striped out area, that's so the trucks can pull right in and then they can back out in this direction and then continue to the front of the site when they're exiting.
Right, because sometimes side loading, they open the side doors, so we want to give them some room between that and a parked vehicle.
Yep, no, that makes sense. Matt, what are your thoughts on Matt Keeley? What are your thoughts on actually having like delivery vehicle only painted into the space or something like that?
Yeah, I've never seen it before, but
I just
not a
think
bad idea.
the signage alone is sometimes ignored. It might be something that's worth doing there. I mean, aesthetically, is it the best looking? It looks kind of more like a on-street parking space or a mall parking space. I get it's probably not the best thing aesthetically, but with only so many parking spaces and no available on-street parking, I certainly want to make sure that the message gets across. So that may be something that we could add in as a condition. Any other comments from members of TAC? Or Matt, did you want to take it?
No, I think the only comment I had that I think has been addressed was the landscaping. I don't know if it was the last meeting or the meeting before where I tried to play landscaper and commented on the grasses that were in the on the planting plan, and I think that had been addressed already, so that there'll be no plantings on the corner of the driveways that will obstruct sightlines.
Dan and Lois, any comments or questions?
No.
Joe Conway, anything for us?
I'm good, thank you.
John Connors, anything on this?
Nope, thank you.
All right, we'll turn it over to members of the public. If you can raise your hand and then identify yourself by name and address. Karen?
Sorry. I'm in work. People are trying to talk to me.
No problem. We're trying to talk to you too, Karen.
Yeah, so I appreciate that they're trying to do things and they're at least showing up for meetings. So my concerns are with, again, like I was saying, the landscaper trucks. They do have a identified space for deliveries. I did a little bit of research. So on average, each individual has about 72 Amazon packages delivered a year. So you add that up and not even count FedEx, UPS, again, where the landscape is, moving vehicles. I'm just concerned that people don't listen. I appreciate that you're putting the signs up and you're telling people where to go, but I can't see where this is all going to go. If they need more parking for all these other utility vehicles and stuff, you have one designated spot. One of the individuals from the development team mentioned something about putting in their lease agreement to have tenants put comment instructions on Amazon section. There's actually a section on Amazon you can put instructions where to park, where to go. Well, I tried this on 5 different occasions, telling them to please, for the safety of them and others, to pull in my driveway. I have a ring cam, and not one time did they listen. They pulled right up on the sidewalk and they're delivering. I get it. They're doing a job. They got to hurry up, but that's not going to work. So these are still my concerns. I realize we can't forecast or look into the future and see how things are going to happen. But once this is built, we're kind of stuck with it, and we're stuck with all the problems that go along with it. And these are huge concerns. Because if an Amazon or any kind of delivery truck is going to try to pull in there when it's traffic time and that driveway is blocked, because you can put a big X there and tell people not to block it. They're going to block it. We know that. So these are just a lot of my concerns with this. And then if you add 126 units times 72 packages, that's 9,000 packages alone, again, with Amazon. So these are high concerns I have with everything. And yeah, that's about all I have to say with this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next we have Brandon.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good morning.
I'm Brandon Apsed from 42 Stark Avenue. Just a couple comments. The initial thing about the reduction in peak hour trips. My comment on that is that I think that's kind of, I know you guys have to go by the numbers, but I think that's kind of just using numbers that look good. I think the target demographic of this 24 unit complex is not going to be 9 vehicles leaving for work each day. So especially given where it's located with the proximity to the light with Main Street, I just think that it's just naive to think that there's going to be 9 vehicles leaving on average each day or returning during peak hours. It's, already an issue. I just want to, reiterate the point. I know you guys are aware, but I think these studies are a bit misleading in terms of that. And then moving on to the site plan, I know that this team has been talked to by the ZBA about kind of open space, things like that. Looking at this current plan, even with the reduction in siting, there's snow storage at the front, there's snow storage in the back that's surrounded by a bike rack and a dumpster. There's essentially no green space here. So aesthetics aside, for snow, I think it's kind of, again, not really logical to think that for a site that's essentially an entire encompassed by a building and however many parking spots, that all of that snow is going to fit into 2 storage areas, because it looks like surrounding all the parking spaces, is it bushes that they want? I can't even tell what it's supposed to be off of the plan. But anyway, I just think there's no space to allow for snow storage, and in these times you have Nahant Street, so people aren't going to be able to park elsewhere. Is that going to result in a reduction in parking spaces or a significant reduction in availability because there is no open space to put this snow?
All right, thank you. Next we have Marie Oliveira. Good morning.
Hi, Marie Oliveira, 216 Nahant Street. And I sort of represent the other end of Nahant Street. And I just want to mention a couple of things. Without the track for the high school kids. We have running up and down Nahant Street for 2 seasons, track kids after school. They run by my house, they go down Valley Street and they make the loop. So, you know, I just wanted to point out to you that they're on the road. Also, with the town dump down my end, municipal trucks up and down all the time. And in particular, when we have snow and ice, there's been nights when the trucks, and rightly so, have been traveling to the dump to pick up sand, going back and forth all night. So I think that's something that should be considered. What else do I have? Also, I know someone mentioned we can't foresee what's happening down the road, but there's always been talk about an ice skating rink over by the Volk School. And if that happens, and we have hockey games with kids coming from all other towns, that really puts a burden on this street. And then I also want to say, this is a no truck street. And this then brings more trucks on this street. And I live at one of the wicked S curves. And it's not like we're a straight street like Salem Street. This is a very, very dangerous street, to the point where, and I'm sure, Lieutenant, you may remember, earlier in the year, a woman hit a utility pole with a truck just beyond my house, and we were out of power for a good chunk of the evening. So it really is a dangerous street. And to have, and I concur, I'm up and down in landscape people, they park half sidewalk, half street. No one pulls in the driveway. These Uber people and these Amazon people, time is money. You know, they run in and out. They half park sidewalk and street all the time. What else? We have a lot of walkers on my end that walk their kids over to the Woodville School in the morning. There might be 6 people, one wheeling a baby carriage, a couple of parents chit-chatting. So there's a lot of activity on this end of the street that I don't want to have it get lost in the discussion for the other end of the street. What else? Waze will refer people to Nahant Street all the time, like they do to Salem when 128 is backed up. And I don't know what's going to happen with the Rotary, because on my end, and I don't know if this was considered during the traffic study, between 5 and 6 o'clock, cars can be backed up beyond Valley trying to get over to Farm Street with the rush hour evening traffic. And I agree that well, that's another discussion, but we also have buses driving kids over to the Volk School and the high school up and down this street. Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light, Verizon comes down this street, DPW comes down this street. And I am out of breath and done. So thank you for thinking about all those variables. And I'm just so worried, like 40 Bs, that we don't know what we get ourselves into until a few years down the road. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marie. Next we have Carl and Allison.
Hi, good morning. It's actually Carl. So
Morning, Carl.
I just wanted to piggyback on, I agree with what everybody else has said prior to this, and I had a couple of different questions. First, in regards to the building. On that, I know they said they had the parking spaces out back for the delivery and mail. Where are the mailboxes gonna be placed?
Paul, do you want to answer that now, or have him continue his comments and then save it to the end?
I'll defer to John in terms of when he wants to respond.
Sure. Carl, do you want to just continue
Yeah,
with your
sure.
comments,
So,
and then we can have
Yeah. And also on the there's one entrance to the building for vehicles on the if I'm looking at the plans right. And obviously on Nahant Street, east and west, as everybody's already talked about, traffic will be backed up at peak times, not even peak time sometimes to that point. And coming out of that driveway, will you be able to both go left and right on Nahant onto the street? Because clearly there's traffic there, it's gonna back up and the way cars, the speeds at which they come down the streets, if you're gonna take a left turn onto Nahant out of the building and somebody is traveling in the opposite direction and somebody lets you go in between cars, that's a recipe for disaster. You're gonna have, there's gonna be so many accidents there. It's already, the sight lines are terrible down the street. So will that be a left and right exiting entry? Oh, entering, obviously it will be, but exiting as well?
Great, thank you, Carl.
Yeah, I think, Joe, I think we had talked about potentially putting do not block the box striping at the driveway. I know Bill Renault had brought that up.
Yep. It's functional. I get it. Unfortunately, people still do block the box.
Yep.
And I speak as this as a parent that has had a child hit by a car right in that area in a crosswalk that was worn out clearly at the time. So you know, this means a lot to me, safety obviously to everybody, but I have, you know, even more so of a concern because of that.
Understood. All right, thank you, Carl. Yeah, Matt, I don't know. I don't think it fits Nahant Street though, and I think we're now, you know, we're asking the residents of a really residential road to incur a lot to accommodate this development that I don't think is just it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. Not that it doesn't fit aesthetically. It doesn't fit the landscape of Nahant Street. That includes the road geometry, the narrow roadway width, the lack of available off-street or on-street rather parking. There's already excessive queuing that occurs up to the junction of North Ave and Main Street as it is. I appreciate their reduction in size. I appreciate you know, some of the changes that they've made to the site plan. I think they've been accommodating, no doubt. I just you know, it has nothing to do with the development team or what they've tried to do to accommodate this. It just doesn't fit. I think if we send a memo off to the zoning board of appeals, I would like it noted in there that from a public safety perspective and from the residents' perspective, I think it would impact the neighborhood negatively in terms of traffic queuing, in terms of illegal parking that can result in potential crashes. It can reduce the availability of what limited sidewalk space we have for our pedestrians. I think that those points need to be made clear to the Board of Appeals. And if they are to approve this, what we've discussed as recommendations for various things throughout this development, like the delivery space and things like that, definitely have to be in there and have to be part of this if it is approved. But I'm still not for it, but it's not up to me. It's up to the Board of Appeals. But I'd like that, Matt, if you can make that clear in the memo, that from a public safety perspective and from an impact on the residents' perspective, we've had quite a bit of testimony from our residents that this would adversely impact the neighborhood. And I do appreciate Paul, everything that your team's done. It doesn't fit, and it creates a lot of impact on our intersection of Main Street, North Ave, and Nahant Street. That's already basically a D rating. It's trending toward an F now. And you know, do I think that 24 units is a lot? In theory, no. But when they're all taking a right toward an intersection that's close to failing, it's not helping. It's certainly not helping. So
Get right, take a left.
I will move on to Paula. You're next. You have your hand raised. Paula Gardelli is still with us? If not, we'll move on to Kimberly Griffin. Kimberly, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Lieutenant. You couldn't have said it better. I just want to say good morning to everyone. I'm just looking at the plan itself, and I'm just wondering, when you wrap around that building and you know, with the parking situation there, you know how they have those petitions in front of malls and such to protect buildings if there were ever to be a crash, like into a building where they have the facades.
With the ball,
Excuse me?
balusters?
I don't know if that's what they, I don't know if that's
Bollards?
what they, yes. So, if they had put something like that up, so that a truck could not essentially park in front of the building at all to prevent, I know that you couldn't put it basically on the sidewalk. If you could put it out a little bit further to prevent any vehicle from parking in front of, do you see what I mean? In front of the building at all.
Oh, I do. It's a very interesting idea. It's a pretty creative idea. I've never seen it done on a public roadway or public sidewalk, but it's definitely interesting. I think what you're pointing to though furthers my point that if we have to go and do something like that to physically prevent people from illegally parking, then maybe this doesn't fit the neighborhood. Right?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
But
saying. And I just
I
think
do
you said,
appreciate that. It's a creative way to address it that I think
and it is a creative way, and I think that it's just going so over the top. They've already tried, they've downsized so many times to try and fit this area that it's failed. It's literally gone from a D to an F. And I appreciate, Lieutenant, everything that you have said, and I thank you for hearing me today. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you for joining us. Paula, are you still with us? I know you had your hand raised, Paula, earlier.
Yeah, I'm still with
Okay.
you. I still learning the system, if you
No
can believe
problem.
it. Anyway, thank you. You've said it all, Lieutenant. I just want to again just bring up the one point that we cannot look at this complex in isolation. I know 119 is not being talked about today, but it's ridiculous to think that this 24 units is going to go in combination with 100 more, proposed 100 more right down the road. So basically, as we've all said, Nahant Street is not the place for these developments. It's too small. It's too narrow. There's no sidewalks. It's unsafe. We've all said it a million times. And I guess my only last point is, at what point does everybody get on the page and say, this is an undue burden? This is an undue burden to the town of Wakefield, not just the residents on Nahant Street, not just the surrounding neighborhoods. It's an undue burden on the entire town. Look at everything else that's going on. We can't look at this in isolation. That's all I say. The project on 32 is ready to go. 119 isn't ready yet. Broadway isn't ready yet. The 400 on North Ave isn't ready yet. The Voc isn't developed yet. The high school isn't fully developed yet. Woodville School, what's going to happen with them? Again, please just don't look at this in isolation. And there's nothing wrong with the complex in terms of the builders. I see you guys are making efforts, the contractors. It's just too big. It doesn't fit there. It just doesn't fit. That's all.
Thank you for those comments, Paul. Appreciate that. Chief Sullivan, I apologize. We had so many residents with their hands raised that I wanted to get to them, but I appreciate you coming to the meeting and wonder if you have any comments.
Thanks, Lieutenant. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I agree with everything. First of all, I agree with everything you've said about the development. I still think it's too big. I don't think there's enough visitor parking. I'm concerned that people visiting this development are gonna park illegally, for lack of a better description. There's no place for emergency vehicles to turn around. You could probably get an ambulance to turn around. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't see fire apparatus for either a fire call or a medical call, pulling into that parking lot. It's just not big enough. And I don't want them backing out onto Nahat Street. I've expressed concerns about that before. That's an incredibly dangerous maneuver. So they're gonna be on Nahat Street in front of the building, blocking at least an entire lane of that street, at least half of it. So I have many reservations about it. I think it's too big. I do appreciate them going from 32 to 24. I know that wasn't done without a lot of consideration. It wasn't done lightly, but that's basically what I have to say.
Thank you for that, Chief. And no, I agree with you there. It's, you know, if a single family home or a couple of townhouses were built here, you know, there's still the likelihood that a fire truck might have to park there, but you're talking about one or two residences versus 24. And I can tell you these apartment buildings in town that have been developed over the last decade, we're there for medical calls all the time. It's just, if you put a bunch of people in one development, we're going to be there for routine calls for service, like medical aids. That's probably, you know, the fire department's most common call. It's our most common call that we assist the fire department on, and that comes with a fire truck, an ambulance, and a police car. And now you're concentrating all that in one location, and it's on a street that really can't accommodate it. It's can't accommodate the landscape trucks, as we've heard today, let alone regular, you know, police and fire response.
Lieutenant Anderson, do we know if there's any electrical charging units in the back of that building?
I see two, Dan. I'll, you know, defer to them, but I do see two spaces that have a plug listed, so it looks like they're next to the handicap spaces. And
Just for a fire truck to get back there, it's kind of difficult. You might get one if it can make it through there, but that's it.
Yeah, Chief, do you have any recommendations on those EV spaces being moved to, or is it just?
If you can get them closer to Nahat Street, that would probably be ideal. If the yeah, maybe somewhere maybe the first two spots coming in off of Nahat Street.
Okay.
At least we'll
So
have
over here,
be able
Chief.
to access the cars. I mean, they historically they burn fiercely, and you know, at least it's easier to get to them.
Correct.
Yep.
I think, Matt, we make that as a condition as well, that EV spaces are placed more toward the front of the building. Again, this is, I'm not in favor of it, but it's up to the Board of Appeals. So if they do approve this, I want it with the conditions that not only the development team, but TAC has worked hard to kind of, you know, figure out. So I think EV spaces toward the front. I do like the delivery space. I like the signage pointing vehicles toward the delivery space. I would want that space painted, delivery vehicles only, even though it's not the most aesthetically pleasing thing. I think it's necessary. It's just something that's gonna hopefully curtail that illegal parking. Because if somebody parks there for a minute and then an Amazon truck comes and then a FedEx truck comes and now we have queuing going out onto Nahat Street, that's a problem. I'm not in favor of the box striping on Nahat Street. I don't like it. I think that if we have to do that, that says something. So I'm not even going to include that in the conditions, because I hope that the Board of Appeals sees this for what it is. But I also know that it's 40B, so their hands may be tied as to what they can and can't do. But that's for them to consider with our recommendations for conditions. But that's something we could always do down the road if this was approved and, you know, it's a problem. We could have another public meeting, and if that's what the residents want, we could do that. That's just as simple as line painting. We do it throughout town. Yeah, not on a regular basis, but it does happen. So it's something that we can do in the future. But I think it just highlights, if we have to do a don't block the box line striping in front of this, if residents are recommending that we put you know, bollards in front of the building so people can't illegally park. That just highlights that it just doesn't fit. Any other questions or comments from members of the public?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Lieutenant. I just mentioned it because it was brought up at past meetings.
No, I appreciate that. I actually forgot that that was brought up.
This may sound crazy, but I know with the parking on the sidewalks a lot, it's streets that don't have a curb or granite curbing. And you just pull right up, like on, you know, Albion Street, I think Salem Street, you see a lot of that. But does that have a granite curbing in front of it?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I
I
believe it does. John could probably confirm, but I do believe there's curbing, and I think it's the pavement may have been overlaid. The road may have been overlaid, so it's raised the height of the pavement up. So I think there might not be a particularly high reveal left for the curb, but I do believe it's curbed.
You know, Dan, you bring up a good point, Matt. What are your thoughts on an additional condition of having that that curbing improved to have a higher reveal to maybe dissuade people from parking on the sidewalk?
Yeah, I think I'd defer to Joe Conway on that. I'm not sure how easily that could be achieved. You know, just if the pavement's already high enough that the reveal has gone down, you know, less than 6 inches or whatever it may be. I'm not sure how easy it would be to retrofit that.
So Lieutenant, that's a mix. There's a little bit of granite out there. It's actually some concrete too. Maybe you'll pick up on this more, Matt. So once these two projects in the high school get done, we have attention that we have to do to this road anyway. I think it's probably going to end up being a full reclaim, Matt. So even if you were to add the granite into it, it kind of the existing reveal, it looks like it's 2 or 3 inches. We'd pick some of it back up naturally when we address the road, but you're probably talking best case scenario, a year and a half, you know, from that point. So there might be a situation in the short term where you're right, you know, it might not achieve the complete desired effect. You know, it would at some point, but we kind of need another couple of things to align with everything going on in this area.
Yeah, and I wonder if it sort of also might lead to an undesirable effect where they can't pull up on the sidewalk, so they're just basically blocking the whole lane. That
Yep. Valid point.
we obviously we don't want either of those things happening, but I'm not sure which one's worse.
I mean, from our perspective, the concrete would go anyway, because you have granite leading up to it. If you're heading west, let's say, and you have granite across the street, knowing the way that, you know, the salt and everything reacts with the concrete, that's gonna leave anyway. I wouldn't be able to give you a complete answer on the effect like we just talked about, though.
Okay, no, fair enough.
At least up front.
Yeah, I see on Albion Street by Brook Bend, it's been repaved so many times, it's probably 3 inches of granite curbing showing. And you're willing to go with your tires up onto that. But if it was 6 inches, I think you'd be afraid of blowing out your tires so you wouldn't go out.
All right, any other comments from members of traffic advisory? Seeing none, Paul, do you have any closing remarks for us?
Lieutenant Anderson, a lot of the discussion that has occurred at today's meeting is really focused on the purported lack of parking. I just wanted to point out that according to your zoning bylaws, for multifamily developments, required is 1.5 parking spaces for 2-bedroom units and 2 parking spaces for 3-bedroom units. The current proposal is for 18 1-bedroom units, which would require 27 spaces, 3 2-bedroom units, which would require 4.5 spaces, and 3 3-bedroom units, which would require 6 spaces. So that's 37 and a half spaces total. What we're providing is 42. We are providing more parking than what is required under your zoning bylaws. And that's because of the revisions that we've made throughout the process, the reduction in the number of units, which has then allowed us to increase the number of parking spaces. And I do believe that when you're talking about the required number of spaces, it's already more than what would be required for this type of a development. You have to take into account that this is an affordable housing development. It's located close to public transportation. That is going to be a selling point for the units, for the potential renters. The parking demand is not even going to be 37 and a half spots. It's going to be less than that. There is going to be plenty of parking on this project. The likelihood that vehicles will need to park on the street is, in fact, quite small. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that, that we are actually meeting the parking requirements as we move forward in this process. Thank you.
You bring up a very valid point. It's unfortunately it's the nature of the neighborhood. And I know that you're exceeding the parking bylaw, which for everybody that's on the meeting, 40B doesn't necessarily have to comply with some of those bylaws and city ordinances and things like that because of the nature of the law to provide affordable housing and to be able to do that with some wiggle room legally. However, our committee's making recommendations, Paul, to the Board of Appeals. We're vetting it for them and giving them the residents' perspective and then our professional expertise. So I definitely appreciate what your team has done. And you've definitely worked with us as best you can, given the size and scope of the development. So I do appreciate that. My concern isn't just parking, though. It's also the impact on the intersection. It's having 24 units worth of traffic coming out into an area that already has excessive queuing and pedestrian traffic and a crash volume that I think is a little more than we'd like to see on that roadway, even though it may be slightly under what Mass DOT's threshold is. The severity is there, so that's what we're giving to the Board of Appeals to consider. What they decide to do with that is what they decide to do. But I want them to be armed with all the information that we've kind of hashed out here, and I appreciate everything your team has done to try to make this as palatable as possible for the neighborhood. It's the nature of the neighborhood for me. It's a difficult location, but I do appreciate all your hard work.
Understood. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Okay, we are going to close out this agenda item, and Matt, if you could get a memo to the Board of Appeals with the conditions that we've discussed over the last few meetings, along with the concerns of Fire Chief Sullivan, my concerns, and then some of the engineering issues that you've raised. That would be a big help. And
yep. When is the next meeting?
I think it's June 26th.
Yeah, June 26th.
Okay, great.
So that would be great. All right, Paul and
Thank
Scott, thank you very much. And John, appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant. Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Thank you. All right, item number 10, Matt is not anticipated for the agenda. Anybody from Traffic Advisory have anything for us? All right. Anybody from the public? I see Maureen. You have your hand raised.
Yes, I came to the meeting late, I apologize. I just a quick question on the number 32 and the queuing and that issue. Will any adjustment be made to the traffic light at Nahant and Main? I mean, I walk down that street and I cross the street from, I'll say the pizza parlor over to the quick lube place. And I'm a pretty quick walker. And I'll say the red, be careful, is almost in the middle. So, is there going to be any adjustment there? Any adjustment in the timing of the traffic lights?
There is. I wish Bill was on because he's more in tune to it since it's his project. But they did sign a contract with a firm that's doing a corridor study for North Ave out to Nahant for all the signals. That's going to, at some point, phase into new adaptive signals and possibly new signals at the intersection of Broadway and North Avenue. So yes, there are improvements coming in the future. It's currently being studied now, and he would be better suited to speak about that, but it is in the works.
Okay, thank you, Lieutenant.
Paula, did you have something else, or was your hand raised from before? And Marie, do you have anything for us? Or yep, if you could just unmute for us. Just click the unmute button, and I don't think I can do it.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can.
Yeah, there is, as you know, ongoing truck traffic on this street. And I think part of the problem is the signage. So I don't see them coming as much from Main Street down to Hunt as I see them coming from Farm Street. And when you make that Farm Street turn, there's just a little sign that's halfway up. So it's easy, depending which way you're coming, to not see the sign until you pass the sign. So can someone take a look at that, Lieutenant?
We did look at it not long ago, and we actually enhanced all the signage for all our truck exclusion routes. So let me see how the placement is on that one. May be an
Great.
issue with placement, because we had them basically do a double sign for each of our truck exclusion roads that had a truck with a, cross through it, and then, whether it says trucks no left, or depending on
Yeah.
which direction. But I'll look at that, and I'll get in touch with DPW and see if that can be adjusted.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. Carl, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. I had a question regarding signage. I'm at 21 Hart Street, which is basically at the corner of Nahant and Hart. So either coming, I guess, north or south, taking that turn, there's no signs there on Hart Street. So if you're not familiar with it, you can come right up to the intersection, drive right through, because it doesn't say no, there's no stop sign there. There's no other signage there. So there's constantly you can hear brakes squeaking, squealing, because cars are stopping because they don't realize. And the sight line, if you're going to come down Hart and take a right onto Nahant, it's hard to look down Nahant to turn, because of the angle of the street. It's kind of a wide coming from Hart onto Nahant, and the turning there is awful. And cars, they're racing down the street, and they take a left or a right depending upon which direction you come in, and it causes problems there as well, because the parking situation is awful. I've had my car sideswiped a number of times. You can't even park on the street, really, and people have taken to parking on the sidewalk because of safety more than anything. You're protecting your vehicle because of the width of the Hart Street and the speeds coming, because it's a two-way street coming both ways. It bottlenecks there, and it's kind of a safety issue. And I just wonder why there's no signage that doesn't say stop, right there. Or
There's a bunch of streets in town from yesteryears when everybody had, it was like a one vehicle per family household.
Right.
I think it just, times have changed, so we can definitely look into those.
Which leads into overbuilding, which causes more problems.
You definitely hit that right on the head. That's for sure. It can cause more problems, especially in the traffic end, no doubt. Well, thank you for that. We can definitely look into that.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else have anything for traffic advisory before we conclude our meeting?
Can I ask Joe one question? Joe Conway?
Sure can.
Will all this construction on North Avenue be finished by 4th of July?
Everything on the North Avenue corridor will be finished, and everything on the bandstand will be down. The only thing that we'll have still up there, there will be a little fence around the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial, but we plan on being out of Dodge way ahead of all the festivities.
I had to bring that up.
You
All
got
right. Well, happy Flag Day. Happy 4th of July.
Yeah.
We'll see you after the 4th of July, probably for another meeting to discuss 119 to 135 Nahant. But I will keep you posted on that, and make a motion to adjourn our traffic advisory committee meeting at 9:55.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.